YouTube, right? It's weird to me that a few years ago we were talking about all these alternative platforms, and I mean we as in people in comedy were talking about all these alternative platforms as like alternate ways for people to get a platform without having to go through traditional paths of gatekeeping, right? And so it was seen as this like flowering of all these different voices getting access and getting whatever. And now it's kind of like eclipsing itself to an end where there are other voices who previously came up through traditional pathways, like Nick Dipaolo, who are being shut out of these other platforms and are now having to go to YouTube to create a refuge place of like a niche audience. Like they did used to be national voices. That's what's crazy. He did used to be.
And it's not like Sirius XM or Netflix is like all like uber liberal,
no, not at all.
alt comedy.
Yeah,
it's
no,
like,
they'll put anything.
It's
on
just
that
nobody
shit.
wants to see it. I mean, and if they do, it's just not good comedy. So I'm like, I just want to tell you guys one thing. In one joke, he basically equated the Me Too movement to like, I'm gonna butcher it because I always butcher jokes and it's not a great joke anyway. But he goes something like, he's talking about Me Too, blah blah blah. It's terrible, right? Oh my God, poor men. And then he's like, and yet I'm supposed to believe women are empowered, but every time I get on an airplane, I'm supposed to help you get that luggage up into the compartment. How about #Me Too? It's just like, dude, really? Okay, I understand your struggle.
It's not even clever. It's not even clever.
It's funny, like we're laughing at him, like not. So
well, somebody pointed out that he literally, like somebody on Twitter was like, I saw him do this joke 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, that's like
it's
in his
stuff,
special.
yeah.
So he's just like not really.
No, and we know he's not out there, and we know he's not at clubs that we go to regularly anymore, and he's not, and maybe he's doing like what governors and like shit out in Long Island that is still kind of like specified for his crowd. I don't know what is.
Somebody
he has
told
a
me that
show. He has a radio show. Or no, is it a YouTube
supposedly
show?
like openly talks about this, but he tours where Trump won. He just
Right.
goes to Trump country
Yeah.
because he's pandering to his own audience
Yeah.
there.
Which is another crazy thing to see yourself as like such being like edgy and like breaking boundaries and shit when you're literally speaking for the dominant political party. Like
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like he's punching down in these transgressions.
Exactly.
It's very, but you know what his jokes reminded me of in the 5 minutes I watched was it seemed like Facebook dad memes, like the kind of things that somebody who doesn't think thinks are clever, but if you think about them for a second, like the guy who says, "Why is there a BET? What if there was a WET?"
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and if you think
You
about it for
wouldn't
5
look good.
seconds, his jokes were like all that. Like
Yeah.
it's obvious.
This is the most old white guy like comedy special. He might as well have filmed it in like the fucking seat of a truck, like with his cell phone or whatever. It looks like one of those videos. He comes out. The first thing he has the announcer say, like he told the announcer to say this is the guy who's been saying what you've been thinking for 30 years, which is like a hacky line from like the 90s that like Dennis Leary used to say about himself.
Did he mention Irish people were slaves at any point?
Probably. I mean, it seems like something he would have brought up. He comes out to what can only be like public domain Stevie Ray Vaughan like guitar solo, classic rock, blues, Mark Maron shit, and then he's wearing like, I gotta point this out, he's wearing the uniform of the only person in a McDonald's that's allowed to open the cash register.
The manager.
That's what he thinks is cool, is like a fucking pinstripe shirt and a weird little purple tie, and like it's all tucked into like blue jeans, you know, which is like a hallmark of like old shitty guys don't realize that like people don't really wear like Wranglers anymore.
One of the things in my Twitter mentions, there were all these weird conversations that started happening in my Twitter mentions, but one of the things was that somebody was like, yeah, I'm really going to trust a guy who has his shirt tucked into his jeans, and then somebody else shared a bunch of pictures of Obama with his shirt tucked into his jeans, and we're like, you trusted Obama, didn't you? It's like, okay, sure, hilarious. I don't care.
Obama is a old dorky dude.
Yeah.
But
first of all, how did he even know that you liked Obama? There's the assumption that everyone just likes Hillary and Obama.
Right,
I have a question for you guys. This is something I wonder about, right? Because it's easy to like put it on him for being white and a male and stuff, but I think there's something going on with that era. There was something about the aughts. And when you came on my podcast, we talked about it. But the aughts is this weird space.
Our mutual obsession is the aughts.
Yeah. But the black people and the female comedians were kind of in the same box. Like there was this era of post-racial, post-sexist thing where you're supposed to act like that stuff doesn't exist anymore. So everyone can punch in every direction. And if you're like a black comedian in that space, if you were like, and Chris Rock did it too with the whole black people versus N-words joke, and Patrice.
Yeah, the women were guys, girls, and the black men were like cool with whatever race stuff came up because I'm cool like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly. And part of like, being cool was that you were cool enough to let yourself be racially talented.
Yeah, because that's part of the whole like roast culture, right? It's like
also,
if you want to run with the boys, this is how the boys talk.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we talked about this regarding Gavin McInnes. The whole thing about Gavin McInnes is that he would say, like, if you actually hang out with black people, they laugh when you say the N-word. And you guys are actually the people that are racist because you're, like, talking about black people, like, antiseptically and from far away or whatever. And Nick Dipaolo tries to pull the same shit off in this special where he makes a joke about, like, black people eating fried chicken or some shit. And then he has to qualify it by pointing to a black woman in the audience and saying, look, I got this black lady laughing. You guys, the people that are clammed up in the audience, you guys are the real racists.
It sounds like, this special sounds a lot like the movie Green Book. Now that you're describing it.
No, very early on, I think I want to say one of maybe the first bits is actually about how, and I quote, white European males are being persecuted, right?
It's definitely...
And it's just insane that you would even consider that premise, right, about like the disempowerment of a particular race without ever acknowledging that same situation having occurred to anybody before that and in not having affected you in privilege or in negative ways or anything. It's just this like insistence on wanting to discuss the issues of our time, like inequality of power, but only framing it in the I'm a victim way.
So was he always a conservative?
He was, he was, but it was always like, you got to remember also the thing, I think, the key thing also about this 90s people and the aughts people is being Nick Dipaolo when Clinton was president was edgy.
Yeah.
Right? It was fucking the opposite of what everybody was doing. So, there was a space for it to be like some people who did feel like they wanted to be more right of everything that's being discussed in the public world. And that's my problem with him now watching his special is that if he were a good comic, he would have adapted that to be something. You know what I mean? In this way of like, I hate to bring up Louis, but like...
No, it's like inevitable.
Yeah, I know. But when the Louis shit happened, right, or I guess when he came out and things were admitted and whatever, there was a lot of people talking about, like, what was it? I forgot what I was going to say. I just blanked out about Louis. Oh, I get it. About when he was going to be, like, allowed back, right, and how long does it take for Louis to get back. And I felt really guilty because part of me did really kind of want to see Louis come back and talk about all this shit because artistically it is this great opportunity for a person who I know has the skill to do so to make art out of this horrible shit that he did. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean I would forgive things. It doesn't mean that, oh my God, he's great and he deserves it. But there's part of me who, as a person who loves the art, who would like to see that, right? And so I see the same thing in Nick Dipaolo that I'm like, I don't have to agree with you to see good comedy. But you didn't give me good comedy.
Yeah.
So, like, on top of giving me shitty points of view, you didn't give me good comedy.
Well, that's an interesting